G'day mate, Saturday night, Shavua Tov. Welcome. We're going to talk about the care and nurturance of the souls of people who watch live streams. What exactly are the moral responsibilities of the live streamer? And I thought I was always pretty clear about that. I've got a very detailed code of conduct. It's the most rigorous code of conduct of which I'm aware. I don't know any other live stream has got as detailed, as demanding a code of conduct as I've had for well over a year now. I just want to run down. So my channel is a support-free zone. Okay, we don't support each other here. We challenge each other. Support is for people who are dying. Otherwise, if you're not dying, support just makes you weaker. Support makes you flabbier. Support makes you a pansy. Support sucks. Okay, it just drains you. So this is a support-free zone. We just challenge each other here. But we try to be civil, be righteous. I regard the internet as part of the real world. Thus, real-world rules apply to my show. Don't say things on the stream or in the chat or in comments that you wouldn't say face-to-face with people. Don't muse about suicide. Don't say things that you'd regret being published on the front pages of the New York Times with your face right there. Abide at all times by YouTube's terms of service and its community guidelines. Mike asked me on Friday whether I tried to slip in anything between the lines on this show, and Mike, I got to disavow that. Not only do I not slip anything in between the lines on the show, I don't slip anything in between the lines outside of the show. I live my entire life by YouTube's terms of service. Even my thoughts are shaped and circumscribed and circumcised by YouTube's terms of service and its community guidelines. Don't swear, don't use the N word, the K word, the see you next Tuesday word, the FA word. Okay, and I'm not real big fan of the F word or the S word, so don't interrupt, don't promote porn, don't use raunchy and sexually explicit language, particularly when directed towards women. Take care to spell and punctuate correctly, use proper grammar. Don't describe any peoples, any races, religions, ethnicities as subhuman. Okay, don't use slurs with these groups. Don't call them animals or parasites or crooks or thieves or criminals. Don't demean entire races and religions. Don't diminish people. Don't tarnish people. Don't promote criminal behavior or promote violent behavior. If you want to hurt someone, don't do it on my show. Just leave me out of it. Don't dox, don't threaten, don't boycott, don't be rude, don't harass. If you just want to beat the hell out of someone, don't do it on my show. Don't encourage reporting of people for terms of service violations or for tax violations or copyright violations. Okay, don't tell on people. Don't dox, don't tell, don't harass, don't feud, don't pick needless fights. Don't go to war with other YouTube personalities. Don't use psychology as a weapon unless you're a mental health professional. Don't start diagnosing people with personality disorders. Don't call people crazy. Don't encourage economic warfare. Don't try to ruin anyone's business. Don't try to ruin anyone's life. Don't try to get anyone fired. Avoid ad hominem attacks. Don't libel. Don't accuse people of criminal behavior unless you can point to clear evidence. Don't fling slurs. Name calling is not an argument. Laughter is not an argument. Don't attack motives. The only honorable forms of argument are disputing an opponent's facts and logic. Don't make lewd comments to women on the show or in the chat. When in doubt, act like you're in church or synagogue. Different types of discussions have different rules, so a comedic show has looser rules than a serious show. I treat everybody differently. I treat women different from men. I treat aristocrats different from peasants. I treat people who are funny different from people who aren't. I treat people of stature differently than I treat losers. People who make me unhappy don't get invited back. My tradition teaches a message of radical inclusion and love. Won't you sit down with me tonight and learn Torah with me and learn love? Okay. All right, so topic number one, be not afraid. So some people want to keep us locked down, man, in case we catch something. We catch something contagious, whether it's COVID-19, the coronavirus, or they just want to protect us from dangerous ideas. A lot of people subscribe to the zombie bite theory of information, that if you watch a video or you read a book or you hear an argument or a particular alignment of facts or a theory, that you may very well be turned into a zombie and then you'll just act out some kind of dissident script. Okay, I don't believe in the zombie bite theory of information. I think it's pathetic that there are smart people who do believe this, and I have nothing but contempt for such beliefs. So my platform is be not afraid. We can discuss any idea here within YouTube's terms of service, within my code of conduct. We can talk to people from all over the world. We have no sacred cows on this show. We can debate, we can read, we can learn, we can challenge each other. If you're not capable of doing this because there are some tendencies in you that can't handle it, then you need to address that. You're not going to get any support here, right? I'm not going to pick you up. I'm not going to take care of you. We're not going to support you. We're not going to care for you. Okay, if you're addicted to drama, if you're looking to destroy your life, if you're just constantly rotating from one crazy situation to another, all right, I'm not like Poor Talk. I'm not here to support you. Support weakens you. Support makes you flabby and mediocre. I'm here to challenge you. So a specter is haunting YouTube, the specter of free speech. So all the powers of big tech have entered into a holy alliance to exorcise the specter, to advance the zombie bite theory of information that people are just exposed once to a distant idea that they may well turn into alt-right zombies. This is stupid. Be not afraid. I am your voice. I will fight for you, and I will win for you. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are those who read books, for they shall be enlightened. Blessed are those who engage with ideas, for they shall flourish. Blessed are they who talk to those they disagree with, because they will be strengthened. Okay, blessed are you when people insult you and call you racist, when they persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. For I go to prepare a place for you, so that where I am, you may be also. Be not afraid. I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you. So I got a call from an old friend, Melky. We used to be real close. He said he couldn't go on the American way. He closed the shop, sold the house, bought a ticket to the West Coast. Now he gives them the stand-up routine in LA. I would tell you we can't discuss these books. I would tell you we can't talk about these facts. But sooner or later you grow up. Either way, it's okay. You wake up with yourself. So Poor Talk says that I need to educate you on the proper attitude you should take to the topics and to the books we discuss. I say that it is absurd. Be not afraid. I'm not going to tell you the attitude that you should take to books, to ideas, to theories, to news stories. Okay, we will talk about books. All right, we've got a whole range of books coming up to discuss. What you fear most is probably what we need to discuss most on the show. Let's go through your fears using good sense here. All right, let's not be crazy. But we discuss a lot of wild things on this show, and that's not gonna stop. So Poor Talk is arguing that I'm damaging your souls because you just can't handle a lot of different information because I haven't prepared you to handle it. He wants me to give to you the proper attitude that you should be taking, and I say that's nonsense. So we're going to talk about Carl Schmitt. We're going to talk about the apocalypse. We're going to talk about good and evil. We're going to talk about the difference between information and transformation. We're going to talk about likability and Zionism and nationalism and Arab nationalism and love maps. We're going to talk about the nature of the erotic. We're going to talk about perversion as the eroticized form of hatred. We're going to talk about the dynamics of sexual excitement. We're going to talk about constitutional dictatorship and Hans Fryer and Joe Biden and Tara Reid and pupil-professor relationships and the other god that failed, meaning Nazism. We're going to talk about war as the great uniter. We're going to talk about the philosophy of history and historiography. We're going to talk about, do we have too much free speech? We're going to talk about the great character defect of contempt prior to investigation. We're going to talk about the Volksgeist, the spirit of a people. We're going to investigate whether gossip is always good or always bad. When is it good? When is it bad? We're going to talk about Lucy Davidowitz and the New York intellectuals. We're going to talk about classical liberalism, individualism versus conformism, and talk about millennial woes exiting nationalism. We're going to talk about the biblical prophets. We're going to talk about adult cinema. We're going to talk about the varieties of the religious experience. We're going to talk about the deep state. And I'm not going to give you the proper attitude that you should be taking to these events. I'm not going to support you as we explore ideas. We're going to talk about betrayals and the unpredictability of human relationships. We're going to ask, wait, why am I talking? What's the purpose? We're going to talk about the law and the Constitution and Carl Schmitt and logical positivism. We're going to talk about Schmitt and the Jews. We're going to talk about Martin Buber. We're going to talk about the art of the interview. Is a YouTube party over? We're going to talk about bringing souls out of hiding, the CIA's legacy of ashes, history of the CIA and the FBI. We're going to talk about David Irving lying about history, the Holocaust, a whole lot of more. A lot of dangerous ideas on this show. Is it all in our genes? Is it all in the heavens? We're going to talk about libertarian Jewish New York comics like Dave Smith. We're going to talk about Vox Day, Nick Fuentes, Ben Shapiro. We're going to talk about Who Dares Wins. We're going to talk about Hitler's first defeat. We're going to talk about Vox Day and Nick Fuentes and Richard Spencer, Niccolo Machiavelli and his classic The Prince and his discourses on Livy. We're going to talk about Nick Fuentes versus Charlie Kirk. We're going to talk about America's ruling class. We're going to talk about Leo Strauss. Okay, a lot of dangerous ideas, and I'm not going to tell you what to think. I'm not going to prepare you. I'm not going to support you. All right? I'm not going to nurture you and tell you, oh, this is the attitude that you need to take to this particular book because you're such children that you're just not going to understand it on your own. Right? I'm not going to treat you like children. Okay, so people will get angry. They'll get pissed off that we have no sacred cows here. Right? They will try to destroy us. They'll call us anti-Semites and anti-Goy. They'll call us racist and sexist and homophobe. I'll say we should not discuss these ideas because these ideas are dangerous and you guys are just not prepared for it. All right, so all those who feel like they were radicalized on my show, okay, don't come back. All right, if you're not willing to take responsibility for your own choices in life, if you feel like I turned you into a zombie because I'm just so charismatic, don't come back, stay away. I want nothing to do with you. People who will not take responsibility for their choices in life, they frighten me. They frighten me. It's like women who say, oh, I just couldn't help going to bed with that married man because he was just so charismatic and I just got the tingles and I just didn't know what to do. All right, so people like Paul Talk who flee from personal responsibility and who subscribe to this zombie bite theory of information. All right, that is not the approach here. I want nothing to do with such people. If you're not willing to take responsibility for your choices, then please stay away from this channel, stay away from the show, stay away from me. Don't DM me, don't call me, don't email me. Just leave me the hell alone. So I guess you can call us intellectual adventurers. That's what Paul Talk calls us, and they mean that in the sense that you can't handle it. You're not smart enough. You're not adult enough. You're not mature enough. Right? You're not grown enough that I need to treat you like children and tell you what attitudes you should be taking to the topics and the books and the ideas and the theories that we discuss. All right? Heaven and earth will pass away, but our work will not pass away. The sun will eventually go out. The rivers may stop flowing. The birds may stop singing, but our work will go on. We must live. Jews must live. Non-Jews must live, if not in this world, the next. So be not afraid. I will be your voice. I will fight for you, and I will win for you. The crooked will be made straight. The lies exposed. The elites replaced. We will make America great again, because this American carnage stops right here and stops right now. We shall not flag or fail. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in Twitter. We shall fight in YouTube and DLive. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in Twitch. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the blogs. We shall fight on 4chan poll and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duties, and so bear ourselves that if this conversation should last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour. Okay, don't know why people are saying that I'm radicalizing the youth, but in 2008, July 2008, this French classical music composer Pascal Dupin graced my Moral Leader chat room. I think it was on Cam Streams back in 2008. That's what I was That's what I was live streaming on back in 2008. And he thought I was a little bit of a shock in the chat room. I don't know what it is with these Frenchmen. So whether it's Paul Talk, who's an American living in France, or Pascal Dupin, I don't know where they get this idea that I'm radicalizing people. But this is a little composition that he composed in my honor. It's called Ode to the Moral Leader. I don't know why they say I'm radicalizing the youth. I mean, they tried that line on Socrates too. They put him to death for radicalizing the youth. Don't know where they get that idea. Man, I'm just into davening, guys. I'm just into prayer, man. Don't get it. Okay, Devon Cam loading, Devon Cam rolling. Let's go to Mikey. He did a video on the Luke Paul talk radicalization question plus censorship.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on this whole fiasco that Luke and Paul talk have been talking about, really as it relates to whatever the fuck happened with Melky, the Melky radicalization question. But really it's a bigger question of, who's responsible for, quote, dangerous ideas, and should dangerous ideas be put out there, or should people be protected against dangerous ideas? Should censorship be involved, etc.? I made a video about this already that Luke actually played on his show. It was my criticisms of the Luke Ford show. And Paul Talk actually watched that and commented on it. I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of in the gray area in the middle where Luke made the point, if somebody sees Mike Enoch, for example, takes those ideas to heart, they were set up to go on a dangerous path to begin with. And yes, I do agree with that. But at the same time, I don't think that gives you carte blanche. And I'm not talking about Luke Ford specifically here, I'm just talking about society as a whole. I don't think that means we should create an environment where we let entities that want to and do radicalize people, say ISIS, say the Aryan Brotherhood, or Nazi-affiliated groups. I don't think we should encourage people to...
Like, I just don't know anyone who take as much pains as I do to try to keep this show on a high moral level with a very detailed code of conduct. There are all sorts of people who I do not invite back onto this show because I consider their behavior toxic. People who are just filled with bitterness, rage, anger, resentment, people who are dishonest in the way they conduct themselves, I don't invite back to the show. So I'm trying to do everything I can to keep the show on a high level. So I'm a little bit mystified by Paul's criticism.
Watch such radicalizing materials, because after all, if people become radicalized, well, it's on them. I mean, it is, but I don't think we should foster an environment that encourages or enables that type of radicalization to happen. I mean, I maintain every society has had censorship of some form, so that's going to continue to happen. The question is, where is the line? Where is the line drawn? You know, for example.
So I had a very detailed code. This is before YouTube's new community guidelines, where it says you can't mock people based on sexual preference, race, religion. Very detailed. Well, way before YouTube came out with that, I came out with an even stricter policy for my show. Now, have I perfectly always 100% enforced it when I'm running a show? Am I in 100% control of the chat? Am I in 100% control of what people on the panel say? No, but bringing in the code of conduct did make a significant change in the way that people comported themselves. So I've done innumerable streams on how the internet is real life. Okay, it's not something that's separate from real life. That everything that you do here, it is going to affect you. It's going to rewire your brain, and it's going to then demonstrate itself publicly. About 20 years ago, I think the most famous thing I've ever said, about 20 years ago, I came out with the remark that everything we do affects other people. That's when I was moved completely out of libertarianism. I just came to the understanding that everything we do affects others. How we spend our spare time, whether we go to, say, a house of worship or to yoga, or whether we're going to, gay sex clubs, or if we're doing drugs, or if we're watching pornography, if we're reading serious books, if we're playing video games and reading cartoons, everything we do is going to end up affecting other people, because it will affect us. It will rewire our brain. Everything we do comes back and affects us. So I've always been very clear. You can't come on this show and call people subhuman. You can't come on this show and advocate anything, let alone criminal. You can't even advocate hurting anyone, even with words. For at least 4 years, I've said, don't say things that are going to upset people. Don't say more than people can handle. Don't take something you might have learned from the show and use it to trigger someone at work. Don't even use it to hurt your mother's feelings. Like, avoid hurting people unnecessarily, because it's going to rebound very badly on you. So it's been a passion of mine to communicate this perspective, and so it's bewildering, but interesting and invigorating to get attacked on just these grounds.
For example, YouTube and Twitter don't allow pro-ISIS radicalization accounts to exist, and I look at ISIS as similar to, say, Adam Waffen. That would be the flip side of ISIS as far as radicalization in a pro-white direction. So I think it's a question of where you draw the line and where you draw the responsibilities. We're not going to have an environment where there's no censorship or no terms of service on YouTube, where people can just post whatever radicalization material they want. But at the same time, there is that slippery slope of, okay, if we're removing radicalizing material that's proposing terrorist activity, then that becomes a slippery slope of where do you draw that line? Like, is Rush Limbaugh radicalizing? Is Glenn Beck? Is Dennis Prager radicalizing? Some people would try to draw that line that low. So I think it's a really complex question. I brought up the example of how Beavis and Butthead got rid of the fire joke because some crazy kid lit his parents' house on fire. So yeah, you have a show like Luke's in the past, especially, that's edgy. There's going to be some externalities from that, but people have to have responsibility for their own actions, and then you have to accept.
Yeah, there are going to be externalities if we start opening back America. All right, there's nothing that doesn't have externalities, because everything we do affects other people. So if you completely restrict speech, if we continue on the path that YouTube is going, that's going to have externalities. All right, if you have free speech, that's going to have externalities. There's no option in this discussion that has no externalities. People talk as though, oh, if you allow the mildest criticism of any group, that's going to have externalities. Well, if you forbid the mildest criticism of any group, that's going to have significant externalities, because everybody is improved by accurate criticism. Everybody. I am. Paul is. Philip is. Bernard is. Jews are. Christians are. Blacks are. Asians are. Japanese are. Everybody gets better when they receive accurate criticism. But the new YouTube terms of service, and generally on social media now, you're not allowed to make even the mildest criticisms of certain protected groups, and that has externalities. So shutting down dialogue, shutting down debate, shutting down discussion, shutting down speech, that has externalities too. It's not like, oh, just one side of this argument has externalities.
A certain amount of responsibility from what might happen from that show. So I guess I'm not really having a definitive answer like either Paul or Luke. I just think it's a gray area, and it depends where you draw the line. You know, I think everyone's actually in favor of censorship, even if they don't admit to it. Isn't it true that on BitChute it's a pro? It's where all the people who have been censored to have extreme views go, but they don't allow porn. Okay, maybe porn's not freedom of speech, but everybody has a line, is what I'm trying to say. So when it comes to the Melky issue, I wasn't there, so it's hard to have a real opinion. How many people watch hundreds of hours of activity? But the way Luke describes it, if you go through an academic book that's a little bit edgy, but plenty of people have read it, which is The Culture of Critique, or Mein Kampf, which is written by an extremist, but it's a historical book, especially for somebody that's capable in life with a high IQ. That's their responsibility. If you're giving radicalizing material to someone who is marginalized, who is 12 years old or something, maybe it's a different story. But maybe Melky is marginalized in a way. He feels put upon by society, despite the fact that he's a winner. He's objectively a winner in life. He's got a family and a hot wife, as he says, and he's a college professor. There's rich.
Some people just love exploring ideas, and some people love exploring ideas through trolling, and I think that describes Melky. It describes a lot of smart people. Now, I had a lot of problems with Melky's trolling from 2016 into 2020. I was trying to say, hey, you're going way too far. This is not wise. And of course, I had zero effect. So I didn't bang on about it every week or even every month, but probably once, twice, 3 times a year, I would try to say, hey, look, I know trolling is fun. I know exploring dissident ideas is fun, but I don't think it's wise to go as far as you are. But guess what? I have zero control over Melky. I have zero control over Mike or Philip or Paul. The only person I can control is me. And so if other people hear a dissident idea on this show and then they choose to act like an ass, that's entirely on them. But Melky's been a good friend of mine since 2005. When I knew that my father was dying in early 2019, there's only one person in the entire world that I called to talk about it. There's only one person that I wanted to just think out loud on this topic. I know my father's dying. I don't want to leave anything unsaid. I'm not exactly sure how I feel about this. I called Melky. He was the one person in the entire world I called to discuss that my father was dying. And I wanted to do all the right things in that circumstance. So to get guidance or to just bounce my thoughts and feelings off someone, I wasn't looking for support. I was just looking to talk to my friend who is very smart and who I've known for 15 years, and we've never cut off each other. Okay, so I didn't like the direction that he went in online for a couple of years. And so for those 2 years, I'm sure there were a few months there where we didn't have any private conversations, so it did put a little bit of a strain on us. But still, even when he was in his trolling phase, he was still the one person in the world that I turned to talk about, hey, my dad's dying. Can I just bounce some stuff off you? What should I be saying? What should I be doing? I think this is what this is the email that I'm sending to my father. This is the email that he sent me. I turned to Melky. Melky was there for me. Okay, even when we disagreed about all sorts of issues online, Melky was there for me. He's been a good friend for 15 years. And so people are complicated. Like, I'm sure he disagrees with some things that I say online. I disagree with many things that he said and written online. But when the chips were down, Melky was there for me.
Rich people that are losers in life, which sounds like a contradiction, but it really isn't. There's the guy who was, I don't know if he was a billionaire, but he was super loaded. The heir to the DuPont estate, but he was fucked up in the head. He's the guy who killed Dave Schultz, the wrestler. This guy was a fucking loser loner in life, despite him being a billionaire or a centimillionaire, whatever you want to call him. He was still a fucking loser, so. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so Paul had a response here, Paul Talk, and so I've only heard good things about Paul Talk. So I don't recall if I've seen any of his videos prior to this one that he made about me last month, but here is his response to Mike's video. No problem with openness, no problem with books. The problem is irresponsibly drawing people into consideration of weird ideas without considering the consequences it might have for them. So again, if I tell Paul, hey, fly to Los Angeles and go suck off this dog down the street, and he does that, is that on me? Really? That's not his responsibility? Then he says, for example, giving Kyle a platform for months or years legitimated in certain minds that the J's are X or the anti-J's are Y. Wow. So Paul never gives any reason to believe that he's ever watched Kyle, but this is Paul's major criticism of me, that I gave Kyle a platform. And in Paul's mind, he thinks that allowing someone on my show legitimates in certain minds that J's are X or anti-J's are Y, that I allowed Kyle. Supposedly, Kyle must be the height of irresponsibility in Paul's mind, even though he never gives any reason to believe that he's ever even watched Kyle or listened to Kyle. But this is his critique, that just one dude on a panel giving some his opinions and then debating his opinions, that these will legitimate in certain minds. How pathetic. Like, how pathetic are these people? Like, Paul believes that these people listening to Kyle, some 25-year-old kid, having arguments with Brundle and Kevin about different issues, that this is going to be the concretization of a certain perspective on Jews or anti-Jews in many minds. So Paul thinks it's the height of irresponsibility that I allowed Kyle on my show. Do you realize that the realm of discourse that's acceptable to Paul is about this? I don't know. Who have I had on my show that Paul considers acceptable? Because if you think Kyle is like way out there, and that's a major part of your critique, and a major part of your critique is based on someone you've never watched or listened to, you've given no evidence that you've ever listened to him or watched him, but you will make public pronouncements on people on the basis of stuff that you never investigated yourself. You've heard from one disgruntled person, 2, 3 disgruntled people, and then you make your opinion based on that like an 8-year-old girl. And this is supposed to be honorable? This is a 64-year-old man. He hears some stuff secondhand. He then publishes his comments about things that he's done no independent investigation on. Like, in what world is that honorable? Like, in what world is that mature? Like, in what world is that worthy of respect? That I would have someone like Kyle on my show. This really bothers Paul. He thinks this is the height of irresponsibility, not because he's done any independent investigation. It's just that he's heard this from, I don't know, people like Vox Day Respecter or Philip or whoever tells him this, and Paul just automatically believes that he doesn't need to do any investigation. Just shows you the power of priming. So priming is when I tell you, let's say that Jeff is a dishonest guy, and then you go to work with Jeff and you just look at Jeff through this filter of what I've said. He's a dishonest guy, and so you don't deal with Jeff on his own merits. So what world is this considered acceptable? Like, if I conducted myself like this, I'd get punched in the face. Like, from the world I grew up in Australia, to the world I lived in Northern California, to the world I live in Southern California, to conduct myself like such a bitch, like such an 8-year-old girl, I would be punched in the face. I'm just wondering if Paul has ever been punched in the face. Now, I've never punched anyone in the face. I'm not violent. I have never, ever punched anyone in the face in my entire life. Okay, so I haven't instigated a fight since maybe 2nd grade. Right, so I hate fighting. I stay away from it. But I'm aware of how men work. And the way men work is if you behave like a whiny little bitch, you get punched in the face. And I just wonder, it's just a question mark. I don't know Paul. I know almost nothing about him. All I know is there are a few comments that he's made online. But they're just stunning to me. In why would a 64-year-old man want to comport himself like an 8-year-old girl? I don't understand. Like, in what world is there some make-believe world that I'm unaware of, some Peter Pan world where this is considered respectable? I'm just curious, has he ever been punched in the face for acting like a whiny little bitch? Because in all the worlds that I have known, you can never get away with this behavior, right? You would get punched in the face, you'd learn your lesson. This is why some middle-class sheltered women say a lot of irresponsibly nasty things, because they're so sheltered they've never been punched in the face, that if a man ever said what they said, the man would be punched in the face. So interesting. People who trusts a guy like Luke? Like, really, who? Why? That's crazy. He's constantly dishing out advice like a guru. I just share my own experience, my own strength, my own hope. Who trusts me? I don't know people who... I don't think I've ever met anyone in my life who says, "Oh, Luke, I admire you." But he treats people like objects, inviting them on to make his show good, kicking them out capriciously, trying to get lots of people to watch his channel by being edgy. He is more interested in his personal adventure, his sensations, his success than the effect he might have on other people. Okay, that's a really interesting analysis. So let's look at me being really edgy. Okay, so let's see. Really, really edgy here. The moral responsibilities of the live streamer. Is that an example of being really edgy? One man's adventure beyond good and evil. Just tell me, which of these titles are really edgy? On avoiding apocalypses. Are we all living in Carl state of emergency? Information versus transformation. The like switch. Zionism, nationalism, and hypocrisy. Love maps. Ask me anything about Hans Fryer. Constitutional dictatorship. The other god that failed. Professor, I mean, which of these streams, which of these titles is edgy? War is the great uniter. The philosophy of history. Do we have too much free speech? Contempt prior to investigation. All these streams on Hans Fryer, who the odds are, only one person in 1,000 checking out my videos would have ever heard of. How is that edgy? And notice that he criticizes me because I bring people on my show, and then precisely because I think they're toxic, precisely because I think that they have a negative effect on people, I don't invite them back. So I take strong moral stands to comport myself and to conduct this show in alignment with good, strong moral values. And to Paul, because I am so concerned about the effect that this show has on other people, that if someone is consistently bitter, someone's consistently resentful, if someone's consistently a complainer, if someone's consistently dishonest in the way that they conduct themselves, in the way that they discuss things, someone's not honorable, someone does not comport themselves in an esteemable way, I don't invite them back on the show because I'm concerned about the effect that they will have on me and on my viewers. But to Paul, taking these strong moral stands on the type of people that I allow on this show, that is like the height of irresponsibility and capriciousness. I have standards. Okay, I would not allow behavior like Paul's on my show on an ongoing basis. Like this contemptible, whiny, bitchy 64-year-old man conducting himself like an 8-year-old girl. I would not allow that on my show. Maybe once, maybe twice, let him explain himself. But you don't get to roll that way on my show because I have standards. And to say that because I have standards, because I am concerned about the effect that the people I have on my show have on my viewers, because I stand up for certain things that are right and wrong, that I don't put up with whiny, bitchy, vindictive, nasty, bitter, personal attacks, slinging of accusations based on nothing, because I don't put up with the type of behavior that Paul exhibits, okay, because I have standards. That to Paul is capricious, because I'm concerned about the quality of the show that I put out, the effect it has on other people, that I want to be a blessing to the world. Okay, precisely because I am so concerned about the effect that I could have on other people, and that I keep up standards on who gets to come on this show. To Paul, that's something that is capricious and self-centered and treating people like objects. Okay, I sacrifice viewership, I sacrifice a compelling show because I'm concerned about the moral tenor that is being established. And to Paul, in his mind, that's being capricious. Now, this is life. I mean, we deal with people like this, every day. And remember, I know an infinite amount, tiny, infinitesimal amount about Paul. He may be the most fantastic guy, aside from my very tiny interactions. So I'm not talking about Paul here as a totality. I'm only simply responding to public comments that Paul is directing at me and to others about me, his accusations about the show. Normally, I don't even bother about accusations about me or the show. So 99 times out of 100, I just ignore them. But occasionally, I think they're important. And so I think this is important just to bring up, to understand, what is a way that a man conducts himself. Is this how a man acts, or is this not how a man acts? Is this behavior that Paul's exhibiting here that is worthy of respect, or is this behavior here that is contemptible? To me, this is contemptible behavior. I would not put up with this from anyone in my life. If I realized that someone in my life held that they were not responsible for their own choices, that they blamed some YouTuber for radicalizing them, I would not allow that person in my life. Those are my standards. I am frightened by people who think like Paul, and the people who complain to Paul that I radicalize them because they are not adult enough to take responsibility for their own choices. Those people frighten me. I want nothing to do with such persons. You're not welcome on the channel, not welcome on the show. Stay away from me, stay away from the channel, stay away from my videos, stay away from the chat. Don't leave comments, don't interact with me, don't email me, don't DM me, don't call me. I want nothing to do with you because you're dangerous. Okay, Paul made a video.
In yesterday's video, I was lamenting the lack of gratitude and loyalty to America and the American idea. And Chris Alton made the following comment. I try to empathize with your pain here. With all of this enforced multiracialism, people are drawn to the last major figure in Western history who seems to have attempted to stand up against it. Despite that regime's inhumanity, it's the human side of people which gravitates to it, because people are losing all family and community structures, and they will cling to things which appear to have mounted a resistance to the multicultural end-of-history Anglo-merchant ideology, which is so inescapable under the current order, even if that other thing was just as bad or likely worse. I have to say that comment really got in amongst me, because I never imagined that people could see the thing that way. I thought, well, they were anti-Little Hat, and so this guy was anti-Little Hat. I never saw it as a bulwark or as an ideal.
Okay, maybe there's something here. Maybe I'll revisit it later. So I've got some other notes here. So I can't think of any controversial, dissident book, idea, theory that I engage with that then changed my behavior. For example, I think I read Mein Kampf 3 times to be able to discuss it on the show, know what I was talking about. I've read Kevin MacDonald's trilogy on Jews. none of my behavior changed. I didn't stop keeping the Sabbath. I didn't stop keeping kosher. I didn't stop spending most of my spare time hanging out with fellow Orthodox Jews. I didn't stop studying Torah. I didn't reduce studying Torah. I didn't stop wearing a yarmulke. I didn't stop wearing my fringes, tzitzit. I made no changes, so that someone would make radical changes in their life based on reading such a book, then the book is just an excuse for them to go in a direction that they want to go in. So I just don't buy this argument of the zombie theory of information. So if it is the custom in your community, say, to clap for nurses at 7 p.m. every night, do it. Like, we all live in a community. Like, so we need to get along with other people, even if we think it's stupid, right? So if it's the custom in your community to wear a face mask, do it. Like, follow the customs of your community so that you best get along with people, because when we get along with people, we then get to glide through life. Who would not want to glide through life as opposed to just constantly having trouble with people? So Paul keeps saying that he does not watch me, he's never watched me, but then, with the exception, I guess, of one video, but then he makes all sorts of public sweeping declarations about things he's heard about me. And to Paul, this is honorable. So I'm just kind of stunned at this behavior from a 64-year-old man. If anyone takes anything I say seriously, don't make public pronouncements based on just innuendo and gossip that you've heard without doing any investigation yourself. So to me, what's more important than a code of conduct that I post on my website, what's more important to me than the words I say, what's more important to me than the content of my blog posts and my books, is who I am. I come to this show every day. I do this show. I'm a happy guy. I was happy Friday. I'm happy tonight. My life is good. My bills are paid. I save money. I meet my responsibilities. I volunteer about 15 hours a week to help other people. I read about a book a day. And when am I miserable on this show? I'm virtually never miserable, never complaining. I mean, I have no complaints against Paul's comments. I find them interesting, and they are illustrative of being the opposite of what I stand for. So I enjoy using his comments to illustrate where I stand in contrast to what someone else stands for. Often we get to understand ourselves more clearly in contradistinction to other people. But every morning I spend about 2 hours in spiritual practices. I do all sorts of exercises. I spend about 4 hours a day reading. Like, I try to keep myself in the best spiritual, religious, physical, intellectual shape I can to do these live streams. I don't know if you've noticed, the last couple of weeks I've had a lot more energy because I got a slightly curved mattress, which enables me to have a better night's sleep. It reduces my sleep apnea, and so I have more energy to come onto the shows. So I think what's far more important for all of us than the words we speak is who we are, what we embody. Like, are we fundamentally at ease with ourselves, fundamentally at ease with other people, fundamentally at ease with God and the universe, with our community? Or are we ill at ease, angry, resentful, and bitter? Okay, so I do the work every day to try to stay clean, spiritually clean, physically clean, in good physical shape, in good intellectual shape, to practice my religion, to embrace my 12-step programs, so that I can come to you with the best in me. I just can't recall streams where I've been bitter. I can't recall streams where I've been filled with anger, filled with resentment, raging at other people. I'm not raging at Paul. I just want to contrast that behavior with behavior that to me is honorable. So it helps to like deal with things directly. But I keep saying I know nothing about Paul except a few comments that he's made. And so I'm just going to react to those comments, because what's important here is not Paul, it's not me, it's understanding how the world works. It's understanding what are effective ways of living, what are effective ways of talking about people, what are effective ways of talking to people, what are effective ways of conducting oneself, what are effective ways of thinking and speaking. Okay, so Paul starts talking at 16:30 of his videos. So yeah, I'll get to that. So I can't remember the last time I was in a feud. Like, I don't feud. I'm virtually never miserable or bitter that I can recall. I get along with everybody in my life. You know, some people better than others. I come to these streams overflowing with joy. I'm thrilled to be here. I love doing this. I'm a happy guy, and I'm just as happy when I'm not doing this. I've repeatedly chosen high IQ elevated topics rather than more compelling topics that will get a higher view count. That's been a consistent direction of my work over the past 2 years now. I keep stressing on the show for at least 4 years. I've stressed on the show, don't use anything that you hear on this show, any other show, podcast, to damage your relationships. Why would you blow up your relationships, particularly with your family? Don't unnecessarily upset people. Don't unnecessarily provoke people. Your happiness reflects the quality of your relationships. I mean, if Kyle is Paul's prima facie evidence that my stream damages souls, then it's incumbent on Paul to provide quotes and timestamps. But Paul feels no obligation to produce any evidence for the horrible things he says about people. Like, I'd be ashamed to conduct myself that way. If it was pointed out to me that I was conducting myself that way, I'd go, "Oh, that is so embarrassing. I was so wrong. Let me make amends." But to make these public proclamations like Paul does from a place of contempt prior to investigation, to me, is just not honorable. And this idea that Paul writes that I treat people like objects, I invite them on to make my show good, and then kick them out capriciously. I think what's going on here is what Stephen Pressfield talks about in his excellent book, The War of Art. The seeming detachment of the professional, the cold-blooded character to his demeanor, is a compensating device to keep him from loving the game so much that he freezes in action. Yeah, when people are professional about how they do their shows, they don't invite people back who are not professional, or they don't invite people back who don't abide by certain standards. If you stand for something, then you can't bring people back who urinate on what you stand for. I mean, and this idea that just allowing Kyle to speak on my show, I mean, he would speak on my show for maybe some total of about 10 minutes, 15 minutes at a time. And this, to Paul, is going to legitimate in people's minds all sorts of ideas about Jews. That's insane. That I can't have, one Jew on my show giving his perspective, because then it's going to legitimate in people's minds the Jews are this or that. I mean, Paul says, I treat people like objects. And then he admits he's never watched me, except for one video. He admits he knows nothing about what goes on here. But what he hears from people, this 8-year-old, gossipy girl behavior, people who don't like me, that's enough for him. And to him, that's fact. No further investigation needed. If Paul spoke to someone like Ricardo, he would know that Ricardo over the past 2 years often pushed me to bring on all sorts of edgelords onto the show because they are often entertaining, but that's not the kind of show that I do. In the last 2 years, I've not done that kind of show. 99% of the time, I've knocked back these proposed guests. There is moral and spiritual and professional reasons that I don't invite people back on the show. Paul comments, Luke, you in the video clip I cited voiced perplexity that someone to whom you introduced the book, which you made clear is dissident material, failed to just laugh at it. Apparently you failed to explain that laughter was the proper attitude. Somehow he got the idea as to be taken seriously. So he's talking here about a guy in his 40s, a college professor, married with kids, and Paul is remonstrating with me that I didn't tell this very intelligent, very successful person what attitude that he was supposed to take to a book. Really? I have to treat like a man in his 40s, like a 7-year-old girl. Really? That's the moral thing to do? Really? Like, I should be here stating to you guys that laughter is the proper attitude. Okay, guys, take the attitude of laughter here, and then with this dissident idea, I want you to take the attitude of haughty contempt. And then with this dissident set of facts, I want you to take the attitude of curiosity. And then with this book, I just want you to take the attitude of skepticism. Really? I need to spell things out for you like that? Really? Really? That's how I need to treat you, like children? I need to just watch over you because you're not capable of making your own decisions. You're not capable of making your own judgments. And because apparently, everyone who watches, according to, it seems like to Paul, trust me. Like, why would you trust me? I'm just a bloke. I don't even have a college degree. I have no qualifications. Like, who would trust me? Like, people are not automatons who just follow what I say. Like, we've got liberal news media, and yet people still voted for Donald Trump, right? If people were as shaped by their betters, like virtually all our elites said in 2016, vote for Hillary Clinton, and yet America voted for Donald Trump. So this childish idea that Paul has, that if I just told you what attitude you should take to a book, then you would take that attitude, is absurd. And it's also interesting, I notice Paul never cites any scholarship to back up his opinions. Like, he is so blithe in making all sorts of sweeping statements precisely because he knows nothing. This guy embodies contempt prior to investigation. He seems like, and I only know a tiny bit about him, but from his comments, he reads like a classic example of the Dunning-Kruger effect, that cognitive bias in which people with low ability at a task overestimate their ability. Now, I'm no scholar of totalitarianism. I've read probably 100 books on Nazi Germany, probably 40 books on the Soviet Union, so I know how little I know. We will, in life, encounter people who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. We will encounter such people, and that's just how they are. We don't need to get overly involved in their shortcomings. We just need to realize that a lot of the people we meet are just simply constitutionally incapable of honesty with themselves. They just can't see themselves. And there's nothing, I'm just not sure there's anything you can do for such people. You cannot bring people to self-honesty, because for such people, self-honesty is just way too painful. They cannot deal with it. They need to live in a world of delusion. I'm not sure there's anything you can do for them. You're dealing with someone who's deeply sick. And all you can do is try to minimize the harm that they create in your life. It's also weird when you conduct a serious discussion. Paul made very serious allegations that I was damaging people's souls, that I was treating them badly, and wrecking a lot of lives. And then in the way he converses in the comments section is like in this sniggering, giggling 8-year-old girl's tone. Like, it's weird. Like, a normal, healthy person would not do that. I understand laughter is an involuntary response, but when you write out your giggly, sniggering, girly tone when you're a 64-year-old man, but you write like a 7-year-old girl, okay, your writing is conscious and deliberate. Like, why? What kind of person does that? That's weird. Okay, let's play a little bit more from Paul's latest video here.
Rising mysteriously, and each has its own horizon of meaning, and so when you get into this total relativism thing. So the Nazis are at the forefront of the very thing that's torn us apart. So going back to Mustache Man as a bulwark against this thing is exactly backwards. That's my point. All right, now let's discuss our friend Luke Ford.
Luke, it is your destiny.
A couple months ago, VDR mentioned a video by Luke, which I watched, and
Ah,
then
so yeah, this is why Paul sounds like someone who takes everything that Vox Dei Respecter has taught him as gospel truth. Okay, so now everything starts to make sense. So Vox Dei Receptor are welcomed onto the show. Send him hundreds of invites to the show. He's been on the show, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 times. Is he, apparently he must be blaming me for radicalizing him because he is not capable of taking responsibility for his own choices. This makes sense now. So Vox Dei Respecters, ongoing contemptuous comments about me. Aha, I get it now. That to Paul, Vox Dei's Respecters comments, they are gospel truth, and Paul doesn't feel like he needs to do any investigation of his own, because after all, Vox Dei Respecter has spoken. So who are we to question?
I clipped it and made the video, which I'll show now. Luke himself showed it last night. And apparently Luke discovered this video yesterday, and we had a whole series of exchanges concerning, well, my critique of him. Now, here's that video.
They're radicalizing our youth. I find it funny. I don't want you guys to get morally desensitized. Not everyone can use the conf responsibly. Explosions of blind hatred, bigotry, racism, and anti-Semitism. It rewires your neural pathways. People get hurt, bro. People get hurt. They get a taste of this distant material, and they take a hit. I gave him his first hit. He couldn't use the comp responsibly. I guess not everyone can. Why can't people just use this distant information just recreationally? Just use it for giggles, guys. Just
Okay, so if you leave the house, you're increasing your odds of getting hurt. We're living in the age of pandemics, so guys, just stay home. Never leave the house. You might get hurt. Please never pick up a book. You might get hurt. Never talk to anyone. If you talk to anyone, there's a chance you might get hurt. Do not fall in love. If you fall in love, you might get hurt. Do not make love to a woman, because you might get hurt. Do not have children, because if you have children, you might get hurt. Do not take a job, because you might get hurt. Do not publish a book, because someone then might say something negative about it and you might get hurt. Don't make a video, because you might get hurt. Don't sing a song, because someone might say something critical and you might get hurt. Okay, don't join a church or a synagogue or a mosque, because you might get hurt. There is nothing meritorious that anyone can do where there is no chance that they might get hurt. So this thinking of Paul's, that if there's a chance that someone might get hurt, therefore someone shouldn't do something, is incredibly childish. It's absurd. People love to play football, and there's a very good chance they'll get hurt. People love to ski. Professional athletes have to sign a contract that they will not go skiing. Okay, people love to ride bikes, but there's a very good chance that they might get hurt. And this notion that if I, on the one hand, in a certain mood, find it funny that people troll themselves and get busted for it. Yeah, I do find it funny, but that's not the only emotion that I have. I also feel bad about it. I feel sad for the person. Like, I don't feel the need to be conspicuous with my compassion and to show what I try to do for people who have reached out to me for help. That just seems stupid. Like, I don't need to be conspicuous with my compassion and my caring, and like I treat every viewer like I'm here to support you, bro. I'm not here to support you. I'm here to challenge you. Support makes you weaker. Support is for pussies. Support is for people who are dying. If you're not dying, you don't need support. You need to get off your ass and make something of your life. And so you don't conduct yourself like a whiny little bitch. Okay, get out there and risk getting hurt by doing something great. Read a book. Compose a symphony. Make a video. Sing a song. Take a job. Start a business. Play a sport. Date. Marry. Reproduce. Have kids. Join a synagogue. Join a church. Make friends. All those things can hurt. They can hurt like a son of a bitch.
Journey. This will be like stimulating, cognitively stimulating. I find it funny, but how am I finding this funny? Nothing more hardcore than video. It becomes the highlight of your day.
I think that sums it up pretty well, and I don't think Luke addressed any of that.
He takes a few seconds of a satirical video that I make, and to him that sums it up. He doesn't need to know anything else. Okay, please do not be like Paul. Okay, if someone tells a joke, don't go, oh, that just sums it up right there. He told a joke, and that's all you need to know, right? If you're going to pronounce on people's live streams, make sure you investigate them. If you're going to pronounce on people's cooking, make sure you investigate it. Don't just go, oh, Vox Day Respecter told me that this salad is really pathetic, but I don't need to try it myself. I'm just going to go make a video talking about how pathetic this salad is. Because after all, when has Vox Day Respecter ever been wrong? And this is a 64-year-old man, okay? You would think that he would have learned some notions of decency and honor.
He tried to make it out like my objection was that he shouldn't suggest reading a book, and that I was therefore against book banning or censoring. And he
is that my objection? Really? Look, there are people who are simply constitutionally not capable of being honest with themselves. And that's how it is. There's no need to get upset like there's nothing we can do. That's just who they are.
Tried to suggest that I have what he calls the zombie theory, that you say something to someone and they just zombie-like do whatever it is. You know, he makes a big deal about standing up behind your words. So I'm of course, I'm making something of a caricature of what his points are, but I stand behind that. I want to emphasize, I don't think Luke Ford is some kind of evil menace, but I do think he is an irresponsible adventurer.
This will be like stimulating, cognitively stimulating.
So he's presenting all these books and all these ideas, and it's going to be this wonderful adventure and so on. But he washes his hands of any consequence that this might have on particular people. And yet,
not everyone can use the conf responsibly.
So Luke Ford makes a distinction between people who can be responsible about handling these ideas and people who can't.
That's right. I do distinguish people between those who can handle things responsibly and those who can't. I do. I make that. And those who can't handle them responsibly, the book isn't the issue there. The issue is that they haven't grown up. The issue is that they refuse to develop. Right? We get hung up on blaming the porn or the alcohol or the credit card. Oh, this credit card, this little bit of plastic, that's what destroyed tens of thousands of lives. No, the credit card, that bit of plastic, did not destroy the lives. That credit card enabled people's pathology to express itself in a particular way. The alcohol that the drinker takes in to excess is simply a symptom of his own inner pathology, his own inability to come to peace with himself, with other people, and with the universe. So to Paul, we focus on the symptom, and then therefore we try to create a cushioned world where he says, I should tell people what attitudes they should take to books so they don't get hurt. I should tell people how to make a tackle on the football field so they don't get hurt. I should tell people how to stretch and warm up before they go jogging. I should tell people how to make love and then prepare themselves for the tremendous emotional and sometimes physical and social and interpersonal consequences. I don't have such a paternalistic view. I think it would be absurd if you would look to me to tell you what attitude you should have to a book or to making love to your wife.
Does he think that does he think that the world is divided into zombies and not non-zombies? These people who can't handle these things.
So some people are just simply constitutionally incapable of honesty, and that's just how the world is. So I could not be more clear with my ridiculing of this notion that a little bit of information is going to turn someone into a zombie. And yet Paul keeps repeatedly saying that I think the world is composed of people who get turned into zombies by information. Like, how could I be more clear? I've said 50 times the most ludicrous theory with regard to information is that it's akin to the bite of a zombie. Nobody gets turned into a zombie by reading a book or watching a video. Okay, I said it 50 times at least, and Paul keeps retailing, keeps saying, he keeps posting in comments that I think that information turns people into zombies. This is a guy who's just, from the teeny bit I know, I don't know much about this guy, I've only heard good things about him, but from the teeny experience I have with him, this is someone who's simply constitutionally incapable of being honest. And there are such people, and that's okay.
Things responsibly, what are they? They're not zombies. There's a development in education. You don't go to, I said this in a comment to him in the exchange we had. You don't go to 5th grade before you go to 3rd grade. You don't get into higher education before you have your bachelor's degree.
Well, guess what? Plenty of people do. Plenty of people skip grades. Plenty of people don't even graduate from high school, but they go on to read difficult, challenging books. All right, you don't need to be spoon-fed. All right, if you're an adult, if you got an IQ over room temperature, right, you can pick up books and start reading them. And if those books ruin your life, those books are just the excuse. So people like Paul and apparently Vox Day Respecter, who feels apparently very damaged by the show, a guy I welcomed onto the show, 100 times, guy who offered help with various some things that he was going for. Hey, call me anytime. And he never would bring up, like, he would never come on and make these accusations. It's just all these snide comments now for months and months and months that I'm radicalizing people because apparently adults are not capable of taking responsibility for their own choices. So there are dangerous people out there who will not take responsibility for their own choices, who let other people off the hook for their choices, and who are simply constitutionally incapable of being honest.
There's a progress to these things. Each individual has to have a certain progress, and there are different kinds of individuals, and one has to be sensitive to that. And he recognizes that there are consequences to these things.
Explosions of blind hatred, bigotry, racism, and anti-Semitism.
He went on another thing that, I'm against laughter. Well, I don't know where he gets that. Fine. But so here he's acknowledging that that not everyone can handle these things, and that there are consequences to this.
Yeah, not everyone can handle having a drink. so therefore we should never offer anyone a drink. Okay, so I'm not a drinker, but pretty much every social gathering among adults, in the evening, drinks are offered. But because there's a 5% chance that someone could become an alcoholic, from Paul's point of view, apparently, we should never offer anyone a drink because there's a chance that they might get hurt. We should never try to match anyone up because they might get hurt. We should never encourage anyone to go for a jog because they might stumble and fall.
And he pretends like he's just presenting these things, but actually he's a kind of a guru.
I gave him his first hit. He couldn't use the car responsibly. I guess not everyone can.
Not everyone can do it responsibly. So the person who is dishing this out has to take some responsibility for these people who can't take responsibility. You become responsible.
No. If someone can't drink responsibly, and I don't know it. I don't know it. I'm at a party. I'm handing out drinks, and they take too many drinks, and I'm the host of the party. I don't see them leave. They go off and they drive drunk. Okay, if I do, what can I do if I don't see them leave? If I don't know that they have an alcohol problem? No, people are responsible for their own choices. I do the best I can to tell people, hey, if you're going to drink, make sure you get an Uber home. But in the final analysis, people have the ability to defy me, right? As a host, I can do certain things to try to ensure the guests don't drive drunk. But in the final analysis, when they leave my abode, all right, they make their own choices. When people pick up a book, if people can't jog responsibly, some people jog to extremes. So I can do a stream talking about the joys of jogging. Some people may very well then jog to extremes and hurt themselves. Right? Some people may develop sore knees and then they keep jogging on top of that, and so that they need surgery. And because I made a video saying that jogging is great, then I'm responsible because they jogged irresponsibly. If I make a video saying it's a wonderful thing to have children, and then they go have children, and then those children end up in jail, and yet somehow I'm responsible because I didn't instruct them on all the proper protocols of child rearing. Yeah, if you can't handle something that 99% of normal adults can handle, that's on you. You need to grow up. You need to get healthy. And whatever the thing is that brings you to your knees, to the realization that you've got some severe problems, then that is the greatest gift. You got to look at that as a gift and then start turning things around.
They get a taste of this distant material, and they take a hit.
There is such a thing as seducing people into forbidden or dangerous pleasures, and the people who do that, they're called corrupters. People do corrupt innocence.
I'm a corrupter. I'm corrupting innocence. I'm a guy who does not drink, hates alcohol, hates drugs, never tried any drug. I encourage people to read books and to discuss books with me. Just like I could be doing streams, like encouraging people to do certain exercises. Any exercise that I show people, it has the possibility of it being abused. There's nothing that I can recommend to you that cannot be abused. I can say it's good to drink 6 glasses of water a day, and you can go out and drink 12. And is that on me? Really? I feel no responsibility if I say drinking water is wonderful and then you go out and drown yourself. That's entirely on you. Entirely.
Son, come with me.
And he also thinks that this influence can be actually effective.
It rewires your neural pathways.
And he seems to believe that people do have an effect on other people.
They're radicalizing our youth.
And he expresses concern.
Yes, we do affect other people, but we're not responsible for them. I don't know why this seems to be such a hard thing for certain people to grasp, that there's a difference between having an effect, which is like opening a door, and then other people choosing to walk through that door, run down the stairs, run onto the street, grab an Uber, take the Uber 20 miles and get a hit of crystal meth. All I did was open the bloody door. If you were so self-destructive, that's entirely on you.
About the people who are watching his show.
I can't control the people who watch my show. I can just do the best that I possibly can. Paul doesn't have a code of conduct on his show. Like, I do far more work on implementing a code of conduct on my show, on my channels, than Paul does. I take far more care not to bring back people who are toxic. Right? I take a great deal of care with what I put out there. I'm constantly learning, growing, and developing the show, developing myself. But for Paul, see, he's already got like a template in his mind. He's heard things from Vox Day Respecter, and then he's just simply like looking for a sentence here and a sentence there to kind of plug into his already pre-formatted thinking. So when I say they're radicalizing our youth, it's obviously a joke, right? No one radicalizes you. You choose to get radicalized because it fits with the direction that you want to travel in.
Don't want you guys to get morally desensitized.
Is he being purely ironic? Is it?
Is he being ironic? Maybe I should. Paul wants me to fill the screen with like purple when I'm being ironic, and like yellow when I'm being facetious, and green when I'm being 50% ironic. Like, do I really need to flash different colors to let people know what the level of sarcasm is with a particular remark? I remember the joy I had with one girlfriend. I was with her for a year. I never once had to explain to her when I was being ironic or sarcastic. Never once. It was such a joy. I never once had to explain to her what I meant.
Is it just all a joke? Does he not mean it?
I find it funny, but how am I funny?
So, Paul, if you have like this much honor in you, and you've got all these questions about a particular video, like the honorable thing would be to do a little investigation. Like when people say something or make one video, they often have a body of work to which we can compare it. So you could go peruse the titles of other videos I've made. You could go watch other videos, or you could listen to podcasts. You could become informed prior to displaying your contempt without investigation. Like, this is what a normal, honorable person would do. If you have all these questions, if you're incapable of understanding sarcasm and irony, if you don't know the context for something, then the honorable thing is you do a little investigation. Any one of us can take a sentence here, a sentence there, throw up a title and make someone look like a complete idiot. But to me, that's dishonorable. I mean, that's just where I come from. Like, if I tried to roll that way, I would get punched in the face. Because honorable people have contempt for that kind of behavior, that kind of attitude. So I'm not talking to Paul. If a 64-year-old man is at this low of a moral level, there's nothing I can do. He seems to be someone who's constitutionally incapable of being honest, just from the tiny little bit that I know about him. Like, he may be the most honest man in the world, he may be the most philanthropic man in the world, he may be the wisest man in the world, he may have all these fantastic qualities I'm simply not aware of. So I am strictly engaging with the tiny little bit that I know about him. And if he had any sense of context, he would have made that clear too in his video and context with me. But we obviously come from very different understandings of what it means to be an adult and to be a man.
Finding this funny.
So, where does he stand? Is it funny? Is it not funny? What's he up to?
Where does he stand? Is it funny? Is it not funny? Where's he up to? Okay, so the normal human response is, oh, let me look into it. But for Paul, if he hears a sentence, then that's all he needs to know. All right, just let me take a sentence here, a sentence there, throw a few titles in between these sentences. Like, he's raising all these questions that why doesn't he go do some investigating? Like, that's what a normal man would do. That's what a responsible person would do. That's what a mensch would do. That's what someone who is concerned with having self-respect would do. Like, I would have so much contempt for myself if I conducted myself in the way that Paul has here. Like, I'd go, ugh, I just feel so icky. It's like, oh my God, I said all these horrible things about someone without doing any investigation. I simply took Vox de Respecta's word, and then I took a sentence here and sentence there, and I didn't look into it at all. Like, I'd feel horrible. That's not how I roll. That's not how the people I know roll. But hey, people are different.
People get hurt, bro.
Damn straight. It's a serious business. Serious business. And, there's all this YouTube censorship and stuff. And obviously, a lot of it is motivated in this very, very bad way.
So people die from playing football. People die, thousands of Americans die each year from drowning. People die from playing cricket. 50,000 Americans a year die from an auto accident. Dozens of people in Los Angeles, I believe, each year die as pedestrians. Okay, so this notion that only certain things are dangerous and that we need to protect people against the tiny infinitesimal possibility that they'll read one book and then go on a deranged bender. All of life is dangerous. There's nothing that has no danger. This idea that I'm introducing something uniquely dangerous, driving 5 miles is far more dangerous than watching 1,000 Luke Ford videos. Okay, that's what a man does. He puts things in context because everything has dangers. There's nothing that contains no danger. Everything has potential downside. But what a man does is he puts things in context, like, what are the odds? So, consistently, for most of us, the most dangerous thing we do is get in a car. That's more dangerous than what we do for work. It's more dangerous than what we read. It's more dangerous than what we watch. More dangerous than when we go for a jog or play basketball. It's more dangerous than when we make love or clean the kitchen or eat dinner. The most dangerous thing that most of us do on a regular basis is get in a car. Compared to the danger that comes from that, what Paul's talking about here is trivial. It's trivial. But a man, a decent person, and someone who makes himself a public personality by sharing his views on YouTube, you should always be putting things into context.
But certain things you can understand. When they were the business of getting rid of, say, ISIS beheading videos. Because all these kids and so on are watching, and there's these advertisers and so on. So it's mixed up with base concerns. But there are real...
Getting rid of ISIS beheading videos, I mean, I'm not opposed to it, but it's not particularly important. Whether or not you have ISIS beheading videos easily available is not among the top 50 issues facing people who are watching this show, watching Paul's channel, right? There's just no sense of proportion here on what's truly important. It's just disconnected from reality.
Concerned. You can't just blunder around doing any damn thing you want. Eventually, one gets into the question of censorship. But before that, there's the question just of responsibility. People being responsible about what they're dishing out. That doesn't mean you can't explore things, but you have to do it in a responsible way, in a spirit of responsibility.
Why can't people just use, this distant information?
So with all the time that Paul uses to make this video and to make his initial video on me, all the time that he spent responding to me in comments and to raising these questions, he could have done some investigation. Could have learned more about my work, about the channel. He could have simply browsed through the titles of my videos and read the code of conduct, which is linked to every video I've made, I think, for 18 months to 2 years. But Paul's not willing to do that because he would get to lose that righteous feeling of superiority that is so delicious. If he learned something, he would then lose his automatic assumption of righteousness and the thrill of condemnation. Like, we get high from condemning people. We get high from ripping people. We get high from making blanket statements about people. Like, I'm trying to do the very opposite. I keep telling you, I know almost nothing about this man. I am only responding to the teeny little bit that I know. And beyond the teeny bit that I know, maybe the greatest guy in the world. I'm just responding to certain comments, certain words, because I don't know the totality of Paul. So I would not be making these kind of sweeping statements about his totality, just what he evidences, what he shows in the tiny little bit that I know him, that I comment on. I don't delude myself that I know the totality of this guy. But Paul, without any investigation, makes these sweeping statements about my totality, about the work that we've done on this channel. It's interesting.
Just recreationally, just use it for giggles, guys.
Why not indeed? Luke himself provides the answer.
Not everyone can use the conf responsibly. It rewires your neural pathways.
So Luke knows that, and also...
I don't want you guys to get morally desensitized. People get hurt, bro.
So he seems to, he's expressing concern about the people who watch his show. And concern implies a kind of responsibility. So I'm calling him out here. So yeah, I think Luke Ford, he's on a personal adventure. He's actually very concerned with psychology. He wants to live a fulfilled life according to his ideas there, and he is urging this on everyone else. And okay, I'm urging a certain view of art on people and urging them to paint in a certain way.
It's just funny. He knows virtually nothing about me, yet he feels completely comfortable with making these sweeping declarations. It's interesting.
There's nothing wrong with that sort of thing. And then this is part of a wonderful intellectual adventure, and he's dishing this stuff out, and certain people are crashing and burning on the sides, and that's not his responsibility. And in fact, the whole world is crashing and burning. It's everybody's responsibility. That doesn't mean we can't have some fun. We should have fun, but things are best when they're really full. Things are funniest when you're also truly serious, and you're truly serious when you take seriously the consequences of things. All right, I'll talk a little bit about the Melky business. I don't want to say that Luke Ford is responsible for Melky in some kind of way. That would be disrespectful of Melky, obviously. On the other hand, I just, this is something I'm going to say. This is my opinion. This is my attitude. I'm sure Melky would not agree that he's.
So does Paul know anything about Melky? Does Paul have access to all the private conversations I've had with Melky? Does he know any context about what's going on behind the scenes? Does he know anything about my 15-year history with the man? Does he know about everything that's gone on between us? Does he know what steps I took or didn't take to try to make to be useful, to be helpful, to be a good friend? Does he have any clue? Of course he doesn't, because these were private conversations, and I'm not blaming him for having a clue. But there's just no humility here, that he doesn't know much about what he's talking about, yet he feels so completely free to make these sweeping statements. I keep trying to limit. I'm making sweeping statements about Paul's very specific statements, not his totality. I'll make sweeping statements. If he says a sentence, I'll comment on that sentence. I won't pretend, give some lecture or make some video that I'm going to sum up his totality and the effect that he has on people. There's no sense of proportion here. There's no sense of humility. There's no sense of, okay, I know a few things, like I know this much, but I'm going to feel entitled to just give, some very broad commentary.
The consequence of Luke Ford or something. And of course, Luke Ford doesn't want to take responsibility for anything. But I think he has some responsibility, for instance, in what happened with Melky. It's a certain responsibility. I think Luke Ford it behaves.
So does he know how many messages I sent to Melky? Does he know how many emails I sent to him? Does he know the phone calls? Does he know all the steps that I tried to take to be a good friend with Melky, and to do everything that I could for my long-running friend? Does he have any idea? No, he has no idea. None. And yet he's just going to, I guess, make these sweeping commentaries. It's breathtaking.
Behaves recklessly.
Reckless.
And that there are consequences. All right. Now, what do I mean exactly? I want to emphasize that I like and respect Melky, and I'm pissed off that that we can't openly continue our back and forth. But when I first discovered Melky, and what was this, a couple of years ago or something, he was almost daily talking about Kyle. Luke Ford is platforming Kyle. And what is Kyle saying? I mean, Kyle's saying completely stupid things. And what's the problem? The problem is that...
So this again is Paul's modus vivendi. He says Kyle says stupid things. Okay, so here, don't be like Paul. If you're going to say publicly and condemn people for saying stupid things, then you need to quote them, right? You need to provide dates, timestamps, quotations. Right, that is the honorable thing to do. To just say, oh, Kyle says stupid things, that doesn't cut it. That's not how a man conducts himself. That's how a child conducts himself. Paul is 64 years of age, yet he conducts himself with less responsibility than many 7-year-old girls.
This is really getting in amongst Melky. So he's, it's like, okay, these Jews, but not all of them, but there's this idea that they have this superior IQ. In addition, there are these ideas floating around, these materialist ideas about.
Okay, so if Jews have or have not a superior IQ, or which Jews have a superior IQ to which other groups, that's purely a matter of fact. But facts, ideas, theories, books, to Paul, such knowledge is very dangerous. He's not a big fan of knowledge, and but the things that he's complaining about here is simply a matter of fact. Like, why would he get upset over the relating of certain facts But to Paul, the relating of facts can be upsetting if there's any potential downside.
Race and IQ and blah blah blah, and every day Kyle is hammering home his message of Jewish racial superiority and the inevitability of blah blah blah, and
so he can't quote Kyle because then he'd have to crawl down from his perch of self-righteousness, indignation, and superiority, because Kyle has never said anything like what he said. He's never said that Jews are racially superior. Kyle and I would both find that contemptible and disgusting, and have never said anything like it. But Paul can't quote, because if he dealt with reality, then he'd have to lose his smug superiority.
Mixed up with this Talmudic stuff that Luke is, mucking around with.
So Kyle has no background in Talmud. My background in Talmud is like this thick, which I mention, I believe, whenever I discuss Talmud. I have a very shallow knowledge of Talmud. I've spent, 5-7 years in Talmud classes, and I know very, very little, just the most shallow amounts.
So it becomes this crazy, intellectual mishigas of scripture and science and these.
Okay, so you need to provide quotes. You need to provide timestamps, my man, and just calling something crazy, that doesn't get us anywhere. You need to demonstrate what exactly was crazy. Okay, crazy. You're just taking the easy way out. The smug superior. You guys are crazy. It's a bewildering mix that I don't understand, and you may have relayed some facts there which could be misunderstood and possibly hurt people. Okay, guys, don't be like Paul.
Crazy pretensions and okay. I mean, if that was just one show. It goes on for months and months and months, the same kind of thing, and it's it's dangerous and it's evil. I don't know what was going on in the.
Okay, it's dangerous and it's evil, but he can't provide any examples. You're gonna say that I've been carrying on with something dangerous and evil. An honorable man will provide specifics, but to Paul, facts are dangerous and evil. Okay, not every group is identical to every other group. Different groups have different gifts. This elementary fact of life to Paul is dangerous and evil. To Paul, certain forms of knowledge, a lot of different facts are hateful. Facts are hateful. That's where he's coming from. Amazing that a 64-year-old man would conduct himself this way, but it's
daily interactions and streams that Luke was running for so long. But Melky was spending a lot of his time every day involved with Luke Ford and his craziness. So that you spend all your time for months and months or even years talking with someone, and they end up having an influence. And that,
Luke Ford and his craziness. Okay, cite chapter and verse. To you, the presentation of facts is crazy. To you, discussions of the Talmud are crazy. To you, it's crazy to combine religious discussions with factual discussions, with genetic discussions, with moral discussions, with social theory discussions. So, back it up. Cite chapter and verse. Explain to us why these discussions were crazy.
When I look at how Luke handled this thing last night, well, it's sort of embarrassing. He's, it's all this ridiculous straw manning. He reduces, he says things like, he decides stuff. He makes stuff up. So he was after me about my spelling. I'm like an 8-year-old girl because I use emoticons and I spell badly. And so I mentioned him that I can't spell, and But he said, no, you can spell, because when you want to spell correctly, you spell correctly. So he's deciding that I'm being snotty or dishonest or something.
Okay, so you can look at Paul's comments, judge for yourself. You'll find sentence after sentence where every word in there is spelled correctly. So obviously, Paul, when he wants to spell correctly, he can. He's an adult. He's got an IQ over 100. He can consult a dictionary. But when I simply call him out on the sloppiness of his writing and how he writes like an 8-year-old girl, his immediate response is, oh, I don't know how to spell. Essentially, I got a learning disability. Don't hold me to the same standards that you would normally hold an adult. You're going to accuse someone of pushing evil on the world, which he is accusing me of pushing craziness on the world by corrupting people's souls, right? That's a serious discussion. Adults conduct serious discussions that are back and forth by taking some care with their spelling, with their presentation, and that you would write like an 8-year-old girl using emoticons and then claim some kind of disability that according to you makes you incapable of spelling correctly, and yet there's sentence after sentence after sentence you spelled hundreds of words correctly. So you're perfectly capable of doing it when you want to do it. This man just flees from taking responsibility. He can't even take responsibility for his words.
It's not as if that matters, but it's an example of what he does. So,
it's not as if that matters. So to Paul, the words you use, the way you use them, whether or not you're accurate, whether or not you choose words with care, none of that matters. Because responsibility is something that is just not familiar to Paul. He does not, apparently, just from the tiny bit I know of him, when I call him on stuff, he just flees from responsibility. Oh, I don't know how to spell, man. Just don't know how to spell. And yeah, I use emoticons because I'm an artist. Like I'm telling the world that you're pushing evil, and that you're crazy, and that you're corrupting souls. Like, and now you expect me to spell, punctuate, and to not use emoticons, and to write in a way that befits the seriousness of the discussion. I'm just not capable of that, man.
What can you do? He won't take me at my word, and then he makes this stuff up, And I'm in favor of this zombie theory. I want to ban books. It's reckless. It's reckless. It shows a way of proceeding. So you're reckless that way in a personal.
So I'm reckless. He makes the video condemning me, all these broad sweeping comments that I'm purveying evil here on this show and I'm destroying souls without without knowing anything about my body of work. Then says he knows nothing about my channel, hasn't watched any of my videos, but I'm the reckless one. Now, I keep emphasizing I know almost nothing about Paul. I'm only commenting on the tiny little bit that I know. But Paul's incapable of putting things in context. He's incapable of being, apparently just on the little bit I know, seems to be incapable of being honest with himself and with other people.
Interaction about something, and you're reckless about how you treat the history of Western civilization. He's under pressure. I understand that. I'm attacking him. It's not a vicious, murderous attack. What I'd like is I'd like him to behave more responsibly. I'm trying to take some responsibility for Luke Ford, but I don't like the effect he's had. So I'm not, it's not like I'm trying to kill him or anything, but it's an attack, and so I can understand that he reacts, and that can be a little robust, and it can get a little personal, and that's not a problem at all. But still, he's not making any real effort. Not the way he read the comments. He would not read part of my comments last night. It's kind of cheap. He's just on this big defense. He's not taking it seriously, and I understand, but it's not very big of him. So what I'm saying is that his whole method of reacting to me last night just reinforces my feeling that he is irresponsible. He doesn't really care what effect that he has. He doesn't, so he's making up stuff about me, and it's irresponsible. He's on an adventure. He's there. He's got his show, and he's keeping it. He wanted me to come on the show. Well, I don't know if he believes me or not. When I'm here, where I am, I can maybe sometimes get some audio out on a stream or something. But last night it was after midnight. We were.
So Paul is kind of taken aback. He's offended that I invited him on my show. Like, to Paul, is like the epitome of bad character that I invited him on my show.
In bed, and I wasn't going to go on the stream, but in Paris that might be possible. But I don't want to go on Luke Ford's show because he brings people on his shows to make it exciting, and that's what he does. And controversy is always good for ratings. And
you don't try to be controversial or exciting. You don't care about ratings. You're above and beyond that stuff, Paul.
I don't want to be part of that. He's not he wouldn't be an interesting person to interact with, because I have a little bit this problem with Fifes and Clarions, because Fifes and Clarions won't take me at my word that I don't really understand what he's getting at. And he thinks I'm being coy. He thinks I'm being clever. He thinks I'm, doing.
Okay, I think that's enough. People will judge. I think this is an important topic, not because it has anything to do with me, not because it has anything to do with Paul. The individuals don't matter. It is the general philosophy of how then should we live, to quote a New Testament verse. How then should we live? Should we accuse people of purveying evil without providing specifics? What really is reckless? Accusing people of purveying evil and destroying souls, or then quoting people back their own words and asking them why they conduct themselves as they do. So to me, a wise man does not have contempt prior to investigation. A wise man, if he's going to make very serious public commentaries that someone is purveying evil and destroying souls, that he takes a little care to know what he's talking about, rather than just recklessly rushing out one video and a bunch of comments because Vox Dei Respecter told you certain things. Because after all, when has Vox Dei Respecter ever been wrong about anything? Okay, that's it. Good night, Shavuot. Take care, everyone. God bless.